What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about a statement, or a Twitter post, I should say, made by Jez Corden that really shook the gaming industry. It's pretty funny, in my opinion, the reaction that he got because of this. And really, I'm not going to put words in his mouth at all, okay? Not a single word in his mouth. I'm going to read what he said, and I'm going to say what I think it honestly just boils down to, in my opinion. Okay, so let's jump into it. He said, and again, this made people very upset. When game journalists decry the deal between Xbox and Activision, they're exposing their bias. When you get free games and have a huge editor salary, it's easy to sit in an ivory tower and tell the serfs that $70 per game versus Xbox Game Pass is somehow better for consumers. And then he kept going and said, do you care about Activision Blizzard staff getting a much-needed change in leadership? Would you prefer Zuckerberg or Bezos, or do you want to preserve the status quo with Kotick in charge forever? This is the best outcome in our current economic system. Rather, Microsoft's capital sit in a bank doing nothing. I don't know. The only real argument against all this, when you boil it down is capitalism bad, Microsoft bad, which is fine, but be honest, you don't care about the staff, and you don't care about the consumers. The amount of people being mad at something I didn't say is hilarious, by the way. So on. So he said he didn't intend to cast such a wide net, but really, if you saw this and thought, but I don't earn much, it's not about you. I stand by the point about establishment media moralizing consolidation, ignoring how much access Game Pass delivers. My inner poor kid emotions were mad. So really, again, like this statement or this thought, like this is just a thought. It's just a thought that he had, or just something that he wanted to say out loud. You know, obviously, it's making his stance on where he stands in the Activision Blizzard saga of Microsoft buying them, good or bad. Now, as I said, number one, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, and number two, I'm just going to tell you how I feel. Number one, you can think whatever you want about it. I mean, if you like this deal, you can like it. If you hate this deal, you can hate it. As I've said, I'm not a fan of monopolies. I'm not a fan of just Microsoft going out there and getting everybody under the sun. And granted, it's not just Microsoft. Tencent is very, very much to blame for some of this as well. You could argue, obviously, Sony started a while ago. Now, their deals compared to Microsoft are not nearly, in my opinion, as big because Sony can't throw around $70 billion. So, you know, those are just some simple thoughts out there. But look, obviously, some fancy words that he was throwing in there, some definition-like words that you'd have to go through. My main point that I want to stress is just how upset this made people. So you see all these journalists come out of their rocks, and this is something that they do so many times. And normally it's like one individual, right? There's actually, and I've talked about her before, Sophia Norwich. She does a really good job of like chronicalizing all this stuff. There's a lot of instances when a journalist will make a very bad take, okay? It's that thing, I don't know the saying perfectly, but like when you attack a beehive, when you like purposely go out of your way, find a beehive, punch it a bunch, and then the bees sting you, and you say, stop the bees, like they're stinging me, like they're evil, but you're the one who started it. Now that is a very poor, a retelling of whatever that quote is, but that normally is how game journalists operate, right? A journalist will make a bad article, it'll be horrible, as they most of the time are, mainly opinion pieces, or maybe it's not, maybe it's like a PS5 review, I guess, is also an opinion. They'll make a bad, opinion piece or something subjective, and people will, complain about it. Now, are there some people that will attack them? 100%. But you try to ignore those people because really they're a very small percentage. What you don't want to do is label everybody who has a problem with the article as those people that are attacking you. Now, that's the thing that the game journalists always do. That's the main issue, is there will be the people that take it a step too far, and then the game journalists will say everybody is that person. And now suddenly somebody like me, somebody like you, somebody like whatever, now we're all the same exact person because the game journalist, which is ironic coming from a hive mind that is game journalism, okay? Now, another thing that happens is once they get attacked or once they get feedback that's very, very negative, they will retreat, okay, to their corner of the internet, which is Twitter. Twitter is their, like, stomping ground. Twitter is their backup, okay, their reinforcements. And they will cry, on Twitter. And what normally happens is all of their gaming colleagues will come in, pat their back to make them feel better. Again, if you follow Sophia, this happens like weekly, like every single time. Bad take, people get mad, They go to Twitter, the people who wrote the article that are getting the bad takes, they cry, they call these people all these names, and then all their game journalist friends come in to back them up. And they tell them how great they are, how they're so sorry this happened, almost like a relative of theirs died. I'm so sorry this happened to you. You must feel like in a world of pain right now. It'll get better. Ignore literally you would think somebody died, except they didn't die. It was just a bad take, okay? And that's what these people do. Now, it's a little bit different here because Jez is going after, again, it's not as wide. The net is, as he said, the net is not as wide as what he is, as maybe it comes across, or especially what game journalists are taking it, but it is going after game journalists in general. It's not one specific person. I guess it's a specific kind of people. But again, these people are all the same person. They all got each other's backs. And I guess that's good if you're like part of this gang, this group, this cool kids group. But the thing is, it's highly exclusive. And again, if you're not in it, or if you're not exactly like these people, you are not in that group. So, again, like, there's more intricacies here in terms of what he's actually saying and stuff like that. And I don't want to give examples of people that went after him because I would show the names, and some of them are kind of big names. I don't really want to get them mad at me, even though I'm sure one day they will find out who I am, and I will be in a load of trouble with them, and whatever. I truly don't care. But it's upsetting a lot of people. And there's people saying, Jez, I like you, but this is a really bad take, as if he's not allowed to just like have a take. Also, as if he's talking about you. You know what I mean? In fact, he said it, and people were trying to figure this out when they were talking about him. They're like, well, is it, am I part of this group? I mean, I only make $35,000. I only make $40,000. And then you had some people saying, like, if you don't make over $100,000, Jez is probably not talking about you. I would, I guess that's somewhat fair, but I would personally like to amend that and say, if you are a single person in the gaming industry and you're making I don't know, more than like $50,000-$60,000 a year, right? One person's salary, you're making $50,000-$60,000. You live a pretty good life. I don't care. Maybe you live in a place that the rent is like $3,000-$4,000, like New York or California, but you're doing pretty good, okay? You work at IGN in a higher position. You work at Kotaku. We've talked about Kotaku. They gloat of how much they pay people at Kotaku, right? Full time, I believe it's $70,000. I mean, that's freaking insane that you can work at Kotaku if you're a full time, you're actually in, you're not like a freelancer, $70K. If you're making that as one person, I would actually like to think that you're one of the people. Now, maybe you're not the person Jez is talking about in his statement or his comments on Activision Blizzard, but I would still put you, and I guess this is kind of what my point. It took me 8.5 minutes to get here, but my point is, I think they just don't want to be labeled as this elite class ever, for like any reason, any conversation point. They never want to be labeled this because they try to pretend like they're one of us. That I really think is kind of and that's very hard to put in just like a tweet. Like, this is what it really boils down to. Very hard to say that in a tweet, but I really think that's what it is. These people, they're all fake. Maybe not all of them. I'm sure there's some, but most of them really are. And we've talked about this. A lot of these people are fake. They're the exact same person. That's for sure. You know what I mean? They don't think any differently than the person sitting next to them on their left or right. They're all the exact. And if you are different, you're most likely not going to last long. And we've seen examples of that. So, or you keep quiet. You keep very, very quiet at your job. So I feel like that's kind of the bigger issue, is these people all pretend to be something they're not. And then when the light is shined on them, right? Jez shines a little light, and he's not even really going for anybody, but he just shines it. He just kind of casts a light out there. It hits some of these people, and they say, "Oh shoot, I'm like in danger of being outed here. I need to." Again, like, I need to go after Jez now, and I need to say, oh, you can't be talking about me because I'm this or that. You know what I mean? Where it's like, no, actually, he may not be talking about you for this specific situation, but I'll talk about you. I'll talk about you because you are actually those people, maybe just in different ways. Maybe you don't fit his criteria for this one thing, but you certainly fit mine for other. Does that make sense? So that's what I think about this. I think a lot of people are very afraid, not in this situation, but they're afraid in general of just being exposed as these people that are making all this money, by the way, these 80, 90, 100K. And again, like I'd say if you're a single person making 50, 60K, you're doing really good. Now, if you're making like 20, 30, yeah, that's more like probably middle of the road, kind of average thing, right? So I am talking about the 50 and up crowd, one person. I mean, you're making what other people would be making at very solid jobs. You know what I mean? Very good jobs. And you're pretending like, well, I don't get paid that much. I mean, I make $65,000. It's not like I'm making 100. Well, $65K is still a lot of money. Do you know what I mean? For one individual talking about games, most likely you don't even care about the games at all. You know what I mean? You're not even a gamer in general. So that's, I think, the true thing with these people, that they're getting mad at him for this just because, they're saying like you're giving all these haters. So probably people like me. They're really talking about people like me. When Jez makes this statement, he's giving people like me really more ammunition to use against these people, and they don't like that. In fact, that's literally what they said to him. They said, that's a bad take, which is fine. I guess that's their opinion versus his opinion. It's a bad take, and you're giving like the haters ammunition because we're already a hated group of people. Game journalists are already very hated, and you're giving the haters even more, basically fake news to use against us. Well, let me tell you something. There's a reason why you're so hated. Like, that's another very funny thing. Game journalists are like, oh my God, the public just hates us. Like, why? Why do we have such a negative stigma? Well, maybe it's because you suck. Maybe it's because in general you did it to. Why do you think? Why do you think the normal media has nobody that actually likes them, right? You think it just woke up one day and that's kind of how it went? No, you know what I mean? Nobody, I think, yes, there will be some people that just hate you just to hate you. You know what I mean? No reasons given. They'll decide on a given day, like, okay, this is the way it is. But a lot of people, it's through time. Like, people have arrived at the conclusion that, the mainstream let's just talk about game journalists. Gaming journalism is dead or dying, okay? These sites are dying, and we need to move on to something like YouTubers are the future, influencers, TikTokers, Twitch. They're the future. That is, like it or hate it, that is the future. And people have woken up to, and maybe it's not better, but it is what it is. And I do think it's better than the gaming media. But like, it didn't wake up one day and it just happened. You know what I mean? It happened through years of bad takes, of I guess being one person, having no originality, having anything to make yourself like a unique person, not actually caring about games, right? All of these things it's not just IGN who does it, right? Kotaku, PC Gamer, like they all are horrible. And they do it over time. It's not just one day. You know what I mean? Some people wake up to Kotaku one day, and I don't really understand how they hadn't done it sooner. But like, this thing takes time to develop. And I think that's what they really don't get. Actually, those kind of comments make me the most mad of anything. You know what I mean? That, we're already such hated people. We already get so much hate. We're really great guys, and then you give these haters, these trolls, more fake news to use against us. Well, what are you talking about? Like, there's a reason why you're hated. Number one, wake up and understand that. Number two, maybe it isn't so much fake news that he's saying. Maybe it's getting people to think a little bit, and that's scaring you because it's shining the spotlight on you. So that's my opinion on it. Definitely went longer than I wanted it to. But if you did like this, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe, bell icon, all of that stuff. If you want to support me anywhere else, I have a Twitter, I have a second channel. I also have Patreon and YouTube memberships if you want to do money donations. Links for all of them are in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.